Welcome to the Who's Left podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm recording from Bloomington, where I've lived for more than 25 years. But when I say back home, I'm talking about Northwest Indiana. The region, as many call it, is a sort of political no man's land. Culturally, the 219 is distinctly a part of the greater Chicagoland area. Growing up, we watched Chicago TV, we listened to Chicago radio, we ate Chicago food. Ketchup does not go on a hot dog. We cheered for the Bears, rode the train into the city, and were far more likely to know what kind of corruption charges were being leveled against the latest governor of Illinois than to have any clue what was going on in our own state capital. It can often feel like you're not a part of Indiana at all. Until, of course, our MAGA captured state government strips away fundamental rights you'd still have if you lived a few miles west on the other side of an imaginary line. Republican reality reminds one quickly you're still a Hoosier, even if you don't feel like one. For organizers, who often trade in the currency of visibility, it is an uphill battle to garner attention from the big city media. My guest today is a Northwest Indiana political organizer, and in the interview, we'll talk about that difficulty plus a whole lot more. Tracie Martin is a founder with NWI Takes Action, and in the following conversation, we'll discuss her inspiration for getting involved, the logistics and strategy of a protest movement, and the importance of avoiding burnout. We'll talk about some of the obstacles to effective organizing, the struggle of coordinating with other groups, and maintaining empathy for our political opponents. But first, won't you please consider supporting Who's Left with a paid subscription? This is an independent media project. I don't paywall content and I don't rely on advertising. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. Maybe I could make more money doing things that way, but it doesn't feel right. So please, if you find value in this work, go to who'sleft.us and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help me write more, research more, and organize more. I haven't raised my prices with inflation. Still, not ready for a long-term commitment? You can make a one-time contribution on Cash App or Venmo. Links are in the show notes. Me and my old body would like to spend less Me and my old body would like to spend less time on construction and more time constructing a better future for Indiana, but I need your financial support to do so. You can also help out by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, and forwarding articles to your people. We are building a community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Follow us on Facebook, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok at Who's Left, and I'm personally at ScottRodge78 on Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and Mastodon. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. Thanks again. Now here's my interview with Tracie Martin. Tracie Martin, welcome to the Who's Left podcast.
Oh, this is so exciting.
I'm so glad to have you here. You know what? It's always fun. As someone who grew up in the 219, I love to have region people on the show. It's like, I don't know, it's comforting. It's like a little sense of home.
Yeah.
Actually, I like to play a little game with my region people here because I'm originally from Michigan City and I lived in Highland for a couple of years. So,
Mm.
how do you define the region?
Oh, good gravy. Okay. I guess I guess you'd have to say, is there a litmus test for somebody who lives here? And if you know these things, then yes, you can consider yourself a member of the region. Shoops. There's like arguments. Minor Dunn versus Shoops. Do you know that argument? Yes or no?
Well, let's see now. It's been a while since I've lived up there, but when I lived in Michigan City growing up, we had a Shoops and those crispy edges.
Yep.
I'm all about
Boom. Munster donuts, pierogies everywhere.
that.
Um, a certain area, a vague air quality issue every once in a while from the steel mill. Um, a deep and abiding commitment to the absolutely precious lake that I can drive to in about 20 minutes if I'm really stepping on the gas. So for me, the region is basically anything that brushes up against Chicago and comes and loops around the lake. But I mean, we really extend a lot farther than people think. Like,
Mm,
and it encompasses every shade of blue, red, orange, yellow, and green in between. We go from steel mills to cornfields,
mhm.
and it's an interesting mix. So I
See,
guess,
yeah.
yeah, that's us.
I'm a bit of a region purist myself.
Mhm.
I'm from Michigan City, and I had a 219 area code growing up the whole time. Grew
And
up
if that's not
watching
you, good.
Chicago TV, listening to Chicago radio. I don't consider Michigan City truly the region. I'm
Oh,
yeah,
fighting
yeah.
words, friend.
Listen. I lived in Highland for a couple years. That is the
That's
region
region to you? Yeah.
where all of the towns blend together, and you can't
Mhm.
tell where one starts and the next one begins. That.
But you know where
Uh,
Illinois is for damn Skippy. Like,
mhm.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So I'm gonna say Lake County, north of 30, core region.
mhm,
Anything outside that, fringe,
fringe region. Hmm,
fringe region.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Hot take, maybe controversial.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll see what the comments have to say.
So anyway, um, the real reason I have you here, though I would love to just reminisce about the 219 for an hour, and I could, but the real reason I had you here is because you are an organizer up in there with a group called NWI Takes Action.
That's us.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in political organizing,
Mhm.
and tell us sort of what led you to. Are you a founder with NWI Takes Action?
Yes.
Okay, so what led you to founding this organization, and sort of what are your goals? What do you do with your
Mm.
group?
Oh, boy. All right. Well, grab your coffee. This is a long and circuitous route to here. So, and it starts with the Northwest Indiana Symphony Orchestra chorus, of which I
Interesting.
was a member. Yes. So, I promise you it'll get good. So I sang with that chorus for, oh my goodness. Like, and it was the fact that there was a symphony with a chorus that I could sing in. It is one of the factors that made us decide to move to Munster when we were trying to decide we wanted to move. This was back during the last of the Obama first time home buyer tax credits, which is how we
Yes.
got our first home. And we were like, we were Chicago expats, and we're like, you know what? We can't really afford to live up here with our child. And so we're going to buy a home. And are we going to buy it where? And we were looking in the region because I had a friend that lived in Munster, and they're like, "This is great. Excellent schools. It's a lovely community. Check it out." And there they had the Center for Visual and Performing Arts, and I was like, "Oh
Hmm.
boy," because I'm artistically inclined. It looked like the kind of community where I'd want to raise a family, and I could sing in their chorus, and I did for 10 years until we had this issue where our school district decided they wanted to buy that building and convert it into their administration center. And this, of course, sent everybody up into arms. You can, if you're interested in following this local drama, um, our efforts to save the CVPA is where I got started in organizing. So I met my friend online who also had a very deep and abiding interest in saving the CVPA, and we joined forces and created a Facebook group. And we were instrumental, I'll say it, in getting our town council and the school district to back off of this attended pursuit. And the CVPA is still there serving the community as an art center today, for which we are very grateful to Powers Health for allowing that and continuing their support of that facility. So after that, we had gotten our feet wet and organizing, and right after that is when um, the Harris Walz campaign kicked off. And
Yeah.
my friend and I are both very, diehard liberals. We were ecstatic about this development. And we realized that our Democratic Party in Indiana was not ecstatic about this. They did not want to support this campaign. They were putting no boots on the ground. They were putting no money into it. They wanted everybody that wanted to organize. They wanted them to organize in swing states like Michigan, but
Yeah.
everyone around us did not want to do that. And so we're like, this is ridiculous. Like we need, in those early days of the campaign, we needed a way to harness that momentum. So we founded a Facebook group, Harris Waltz for NWI for Harrison Waltz. And that snowballed into us getting asked to help staff the only Harris Waltz field office in Indiana, which was in Gary, and we opened it, and it was yeah, it was amazing. It was one of the
I can't
best.
believe we only had one. That's kind of insane,
And tell me about it.
especially considering they had $1 billion. That look, for those of you listening, this look Tracy's giving me right now says it all.
Dude, we had to do it bootleg. We had to do it on our own because we believed. We believed that if we could harness this interest in Harrison Waltz, this amazing campaign, because say what you want about how things ended, Kamala Harris ran a heroic campaign. She did an amazing job. It still hurts my heart to think of where we could be had we had more support.
Yeah,
Um,
and more time. She was really put behind the 8 ball.
dude, so long that is how we got involved in organizing. And then when, the horrors of the election unfolded and we're all sitting there in the smoldering rubbles of our dreams of turning Indiana blue, we're like, do we fold tents and give up or do we stay and fight? And, once the numbness and shock wore off and everyone was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We had this network of thousands of people all across Northwest Indiana connected and eager for a fight. And we said, okay, we'll step in and we'll do it because nobody else was. There was no organized resistance. And
Yeah,
and we knew that that was a void that we could fill. So that's where NWI Takes Action came in to play. And our goal is really simple. We want to serve as a bulwark against the MAGA agenda rolling over our rights here in Indiana. It's that simple.
yeah. Boy, like, where do you even start? Right? There's so much with this regime. There's so much
What
coming
else can
at
you
us.
add with that? I mean, you feel like an idiot. You feel ridiculous saying words like regime and, resistance. Like I'll tell you what, a day where I'm like, whoa, how did I get here? Was the day I'm like typing friends and I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, I can't do this thing that I'm planning to do because I am somehow now the leading, I'm helping to lead the resistance in Northwest Indiana. I'm like, dude, I just said that. Like I said those words. This is not a place any of us expected to be, but here we are.
Yeah, we
And
didn't feel like this is America. We I think
you
always took for granted, uh, to our detriment now, as we're seeing that it couldn't happen here. And
know,
newsflash, it's
it
happening.
is. And fast. This whole flood the zone strategy was effective to a point. Ay, ay, ay. So how do we
Yeah.
get a place to fight? Um, it's when we started, 50501 wasn't around. There wasn't
Mhm.
any other sort of national force setting agendas. So we just tried to pick things that really resonated locally. Um, oh my goodness, it's hard to think back to where we started and our first protests. Really what we did was we're like, let's just go get a corner and say no. No, we one of the easiest things to say no to was our lovely second unelected president,
Mm.
Elon Musk, and
Yeah.
all of the firings. Up here in the region, workers matter. We are a proud unionist country, and we're a proud unionist area, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
really
the mills were all up there. We've
yeah,
got, oil refineries and stuff up there. There's a lot of industry,
yes,
where maybe in the rest of Indiana, it's not that heavily concentrated, but, the region is distinctly, the Rust Belt,
it
you
is.
know?
and it's still alive, Rust Belt. Industry is still here. And if you one of my friends talks about how you can drive 10 minutes from my house and it'll look like you are in a futuristic movie set because it's all industrial. It's and we hoped that we could sort of persuade some of that cohort that has moved into a more MAGA territory,
Yeah.
because siphoned off a lot of union support. And we believed that there would be some regret for that. And we've made some success in that.
Mhm.
We've seen some we've seen some Trump regretfuls, and we hoped that by opening some protests that we could kind of make an opening for people to come back and debate with the Democrats, get back into the fold so we could serve them.
Yeah.
Um, but then after that, 50501 came along, and then they started really getting a lot of national attention. And they started making these national days of action. And
Yeah.
we found that that really sort of energized things. And that was really helpful. So from there, we just started throwing up shingles and throwing up signs and meeting and hosting on these days of action.
Is there a 5051 chapter up there that you are working with, coordinating with?
Well, yes and no. So
Yeah.
5051 is a national, I mean, they're a national movement, but they're also extremely hyper local, meaning each
Hmm.
state has their own chapter and then that each state organizes from there. Ours is strong and they're energized. But the communication there's a lot going on.
Still
So
figuring things out. Yeah.
they're still figuring things out. It's getting out there, but that is one of the key issues the movement is facing right now, is because everything is so fragmented. There is not one voice speaking for the resistance. And I don't know if you look back in history, has there ever really been? Like we look back on the 60s and we think of it as being led by Martin Luther King. And there's
Hmm.
certain rights organizations that you believe are being led by one voice. But in reality, when you look at the ground, it's a bunch of different organizations that are working together. They're jockeying for position. They have their own internal disputes. It's kind of hard to figure out where the landscape goes from here.
Yeah, and well, and if you look back, like now in retrospect, when we're coming up and we're learning about the civil rights movement,
Mhm.
um, Dr. King is sort of perched at the head of that, the way we're taught it. But boy, there were millions and millions of people from across the spectrum working in that movement. It wasn't unified. There were internal
Oh,
struggles, uh,
yes.
and yet, all those folks working in conjunction sometimes, separately other times, that tide, that energy coalesced into something beautiful.
Yes. And I'm hopeful that we're seeing the seeds of that happening now. And it's important to keep in mind that it's May. Like he's only been in office in 5 months and look how far we have come. There is a national voice. They're struggling.
Mhm.
50501 has they're a great group, but when you're an organizer and they're scheduling like a major initiative at the last minute on, a holy weekend, it's difficult. Like there's a lot of on the ground issues that people don't
Yeah.
really understand take place. Like you have to figure, are people traveling this weekend? Are they going to be at church? Are they going to be is it Passover for them? There's
Right.
a lot of different logistical issues that I never thought I'd have to think about. Is there gonna be a way for a handicapped person to get on that sidewalk? Do I need to get a
Mm.
permit? Do I need to, call the police and bring them cookies so they're nice to me? There's a lot. There is a lot. Although let me before I say one more thing, let me give a shout
Please.
out to every police officer that I have encountered here in NWI. I've hosted protests in Highland, Munster, Crown Point, and every single time the support we have gotten from our police. has been very impressive. They've made pains to reach out to me to find out if I need things. They found me. Sometimes I don't know how. I'm like, okay,
I
uh-huh.
mean, that is kind of their job.
Yeah, well, so if they want to find you, they can. And they
Oh,
have
yeah.
been very supportive. Our rights have been protected, which has been a comfort to me. Um,
That's good to hear. Yeah, it
it
really
is.
is.
Yes.
That's something you worry about,
Mhm.
is in lieu of, or, in the wake of, the George Floyd protests 5
Yes.
years ago, and the way some of those, turned ugly, and, a lot of that was at the hands, of the police and not the protesters.
Yes. I
So I'm so glad that, you've got, good, honest, police with integrity up there in the region.
Yeah, we do. Now, I can't speak for every police officer in every area or for every interaction. It's important to keep in mind that I'm a white Munster woman. I am a very protected class of person. Um, but I will say that my rights have been protected. My protesters have been protected, and that's something that I take a lot of comfort in. It gives me comfort because of the fact that one of the most beautiful things about protesting is so invigorating, is
Mhm.
that you get your faith in humanity restored. I swear to you.
Yep.
Stand on the corner with a picket up here for, like, 20 minutes, you will get 1 or 2 chucklehead MAGA kids rolling by,
Oh, yeah.
but 90% of the feedback we get is so positive. They're honking, buses, oil truckers, police sometimes. Everybody of every persuasion, people you wouldn't think would, are coming by, they're honking, they're engaging, they're asking where they can join up. It's there. The energy is there. People are still here. Democracy is still here. I don't care what anybody says, it's still here. We just need to find people's will to preserve it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of why we do what we do.
So, yeah, let's talk about what you do. You said, sort of at the beginning of the year, you really focused your energies on, co-president slash sugar daddy Elon Musk and, his intimate involvement, in the administration and, every facet of the government and our lives. Did you, is there a Tesla dealership up there? Did y'all, protest outside one of those?
No, we didn't do any Tesla stuff. We organized mainly in, like, we focus our particular protests on places where we can get cross vehicle traffic because we want
Mm,
visual presence, um,
yeah,
for as much because we wanted as many human beings to see. I mean, part of our earliest goals, my very first protest I did, I'm like, people are desperate. They're too, I did not want the idea that it's safe to protest to go away because
yeah,
people were scared to do it. And so
mhm.
I'm like, we're just gonna have to prove that it's safe. And so this is like in early February, we went to Crown Point and we stood on the plaza. It's freezing cold and there's snow and rain and drizzle and it was awful. And my poor kids, I wanted to prove that it was safe for children to go. Um, so I made my kids go with me, and they're standing in the drizzle and the cold.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we wanted to be like, it's safe. So we had somebody in a wheelchair there. We had elderly people there. We had people of every race and ethnicity there. We really tried to recruit people to prove it's safe to do. And after that, and that ignited it because then people were like, "Oh, okay." And each step of the way, our goal has been to keep that flame in the most fundamental way alive. And because of that, we chose to focus on visibility.
I
So
see.
we picked street corners we knew would get traffic from 65 and 94 and people like trucking corridors, shipping corridors.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then we started focusing on issues that were really like catchy. Like
Mhm.
We did a Veterans Day protest that really got a lot, of interest because, people are there's a lot of veterans that are pissed about what's going on.
Oh,
Um,
they're making a
they're yeah,
they're
people
shredding the VA. Oh my god.
dude, if there's one cohort of people to whom we should keep our promises, it's our vets. For God's sakes, what more can they give? Like,
Seriously.
we promised them
And
health care for life. They've earned it. And so, yeah, that protest was really impactful. No King's protest, that was really impactful. But there are other groups that did, they did do the Tesla dealers. They did a lot. There's a group that has grown that is now focused in Valpo, and they do a lot of really fun protests where they also coincided with a donation scheme. They're called NWI activists. I'll give them a shout out.
hmm,
They do amazing work. They tend to work in Valpo. They're focused on that square there. And they'll find a theme around some sort of, like, right now they're doing a no, I can't remember if they dropped it yet or not, but they did a no, clean up our government, and then they donated, and it was themed around what they knew that their local nonprofits needed the most. It was cleaning supplies. So we tend to try to focus on things that are gonna get press coverage because
yeah.
we really want that cadence of you can protest. The protest movement is alive, it's well, it's safe, and it's here. And we want to keep that up and that volume up because if we don't, then we don't want there to be
Yeah.
any sort of opening for anyone to start chipping away at that. Because
Yeah, you don't wanna lose that momentum.
yes, and if you lose that momentum, that's when you start seeing little laws come into place. Little
Mhm.
laws that chip away at that organizing capability. We want it to become a real political liability for any local, state, national, whatever, any politician in Indiana to try to curtail our protest rights.
One of the things we had talked about, um, leading up to this conversation was sort of how do you balance maybe keeping yourselves out there, having maybe a little protest every day, like we're going to be here. Maybe there's only going to be 20 of us. Maybe there's only going to be a handful of us, but we're going to be visible right here every day. Or, do you try to put together the big weekend thing where you can get everybody to come out and make a big show of it, a big demonstration of people power, power of the resistance. um are you finding one way is more effective than the other at getting press coverage or get generating excitement? Is it sort of a both and thing? How do you make those decisions?
Well, we're kind of at a crossroads with that, I'll tell you. People have very differing opinions on it, and it's one of the things that we're going to kind of have to wrestle with. Um,
Mhm.
Me personally, I am of the opinion that very small protests on an ongoing weekly basis, it's it's important to keep that flame of protest alive, but if
Mm.
you're out there every weekend at the same spot saying the same thing over and over, you run the risk of making it appear to others that you're losing. Um,
Hmm.
one of the most important one of the most important visual aspects of a protest is that you've got numbers.
Yeah.
Mass is important if you are trying to fight a particular issue. Um, and you also run the risk of burnout. I mean, we need to start when we first started, everybody was just so inflamed and there was this massive sense of urgency. But part of Trump's tactic is to wear you down.
Yes. Yes.
So, we all have lives. I have 2 jobs, 2 kids, you know, I have a house and a mortgage and responsibilities. Everybody does. You have work, we all do. We're not getting paid for this work that we're doing. Um, the MAGAists know that. And so we kind of need to start thinking strategically because he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And
Yeah.
so we need to part of us, my viewpoint is that we need to start trying to be a little more organized and cohesive. Um, but that said, there are some people that they're like, I need to be out there. I need to be doing something. I need to raise my voice. And you know what? Go for it. That's their right and they should. Um, it one thing that we've all struggled with is communication.
Mhm.
And it's when you've got because it's not just us that are organizing protests now. When we first started, it was prime in Lake County, um, and pretty much anywhere in Northwest Indiana. We were one of the first organizations to come out and start organizing protests, if not the first.
Mhm. Yeah.
But since then, there have been other organizations that have started taking up, like NWI Activists does work now in Porter County, and they tend to handle the Porter County protests. Indivisible NWI has started doing some protesting. So there are some, and they do some in your hometown of Michigan City. They tend to lead the protests up there. So other organizations have started picking up the mantle. But with that, it just becomes really difficult. There's some major groups like the Nasty Women of Porter County, Indivisible NWI, who are they are amazing. I love them so
Yeah.
much. I love all of them. But like between us all, we've got our own communication apparatus. They've got their communication apparatus. It's not possible to link them all. And so people
Yeah.
get frustrated. They're like, where can we go? I cannot tell you how many days of the week somebody will call me and they'll be like, Tracy, how do I figure out where to go? I need one place. And I'm like, I can't give that to you. Sorry, I would do it if I could. But there is not one organizing force. And I think, not to put too fine a point on it, but I feel like the fact that the Democratic Party has been so slow to respond to this
Yeah.
moment is the reason why. You've had all these grassroots organizations that have had to step up and fill in. And, they're starting to, like here in Lake County, we have a new commissioner, Mike Repay, and he has really been helpful. He's really helped us. He'll cross promote our events. He'll connect with us and help us find, ways to get our word out there. But there still really is not one clearinghouse of protest information, and that's not a problem we've been able to solve.
Well, yeah, it's tricky because they like one of the strengths of protest movements is that they are
Okay.
diffuse and maybe don't necessarily have a single focal point. Um, that it is a broad base of people, but on the other hand, yeah, you would definitely like to have some sort of coordination where you can get all of these different groups on the same page. Maintain that grassroots energy. You don't want it to seem like it's coming from the top down.
Right.
It's got to be a fine balancing act.
It is a fine balancing act, and we've really, partnering with some of the resistance focused organizations in the region. Again, the Indivisible NWI has been amazing. And so have the Nasty Women of Porter County. We reached out to them. We've all had meetings. What's one of the first things we did was when all of this, in early February, when people were like, "Oh my God, we got to do something," NWI takes action. We coordinated a meeting with Indivisible and the Nasty Women. We invited a bunch of other like Planned Parenthood and groups, and we all kind of came together with a plan. And it's helped. It's helped a lot, but it's still people are still frustrated that there's things happening that they're missing. And my best advice, if anybody's listening, is if you want to know what's going on, is you have to tune into these groups that are doing it. Indivisible is a great clearinghouse up here. They have a really robust organization. They have e-blasts. We all cross promote each other's events, but you do have to tune in. Unfortunately, that's just really all there is to it. There's no one place where you can go and say, "Oh, I'll go here and click and register." But I'll tell you, man, if there's some enterprising person that wants to invent an app to do that, ooh, that'd be great.
Interesting. Well, we're putting that out there into the ether, hoping we've got
Yes,
some technical
developers,
people listening to this.
if you're listening, DM me, please. We really want somebody to make us an app. I
Yeah, no, that would
did.
be amazing.
We did one thing I did do, early when, 5 calls was around, we were pushing 5 calls pretty hard, and it's another one, if they're an amazing way,
Yeah.
Because one of the
Still
things that
around,
we
right?
Huh?
They're still around, yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Okay.
They're amazing, but their focus is national. And
Mhm.
when you are in a state, one of the joys of organizing in Indiana is not we don't have the luxury of just focusing on our national issues. We're getting hammered on both sides. So we've got the
Yes.
MAGA revolution nationally, we've got the MAGA revolution in our state. And so we needed to attack both on both fronts. And so we wanted people to be able to use 5 calls to call Indiana's legislators. Um,
Yeah.
and I reached out to 5 calls to see if we could find a way to, pilot a program where we could do that. And then we weren't able to get traction for that. But again,
That
developed.
definitely sounds like something every state should have its own version of, where you can call your state rep, your state senator,
Yes.
the
Because
majority leader, the minority leader, and, the governor, whatever.
because
Just
that was one of the most impactful things early on. We shut down Congress's phone lines. They paid
mhm.
attention to that. Congress does not like to be irritated. They've got work to do. They don't want to have to hear about calls. They don't want their switchboards disrupted. Any disruption that you can cause in that pipeline of their workflow is
They
incredibly important.
notice.
They
Yeah.
notice, yeah. And that's what we're here for. We're here to disrupt. We're here to make people pay attention to what we're saying.
You said maybe the different organizations are having a hard time coordinating. Maybe it's a big endeavor to get all these organizations on the same page. Are you getting any help from your local Democratic Party?
Yes, yes, and no. It's important to keep in mind that the way Indiana's Democratic Party is structured, there's not a lot of support and revenue for our local chapters right now.
They do
That's
struggle with money. Yeah.
They struggle with money, they struggle with time and resources. And it's its own beast. I will say, like again, like I mentioned, Mike Repay is Lake County's the new head of our party here, and he has been helpful. They'll put forward some of our events on Mobilize, which is great. Um, but yeah, I mean, we could use Lyft. We could always use Lyft. Um, I think in general, it's hard not to be frustrated, um, with the Democratic Party slow and response to.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely this sort of internal debate that's playing out in the party. You've got some. It seems more like the older guard in the party. Your James Carvilles, your Chuck Schumers. These folks
Mhm.
are saying, oh, you stand back, you play possum, you let the Republicans ruin things, and then that will demonstrate to everybody that they shouldn't be trusted with power, and then we'll win in 26 and whatever. I mean, number one, that's adorable that they think we're going to have free and fair elections in 26,
No, right?
and they're putting all their faith in that. But on the other hand, like you're like hanging people out to dry with that technique.
Yeah,
Like
that's
people
nice for
people are
them.
you're letting people be harmed to prove a point that Republicans are harming people.
Yeah.
Uh,
E No,
Not
no,
great.
no, I'm not okay with that. Absolutely no. I Dude, that's nice for them, but I have kids to raise,
Yeah,
you know?
they might be able to weather that storm. Half of Congress is millionaires,
Yeah,
right?
it's nice for them, but you know what? I have 2 special needs kids that are on psychiatric medicine. A f I I need them to be able to get care. I need to know that, like, they can go to college. I need them to know that they can I live in Indiana. I moved One of the reasons I moved here is because there's better state schools. Like, I
Yeah.
can't do I
Yeah.
wanna send them to them so now that they've been MAGAfied? Like, I don't have
Seriously.
time to wait. The people that are being deported don't have time to wait. You kn People who are being kicked off Medicaid don't have time to wait. They could die. Like,
Yeah.
it's not none of us have time to just sit back and be like, "Oh, let's just see what happens." No, that's selfish and lazy. I'm scared for my kids. Both of my kids are autistic. When RFK comes out and starts saying things like, "Let's
Mhm.
register autistic kids, take them away from their parents so we can detox them from meds and re-educate them," those are my kids, dude, over my cold dead body. Like,
Yeah, that's scary stuff. That
it's
that's
scary
eugenics talk.
stuff. Like, do I need to go pack a bug out bag? Like, this is the United States of America. We did what we were supposed to do. I went to college. I served communities. I, I raised my kids. I paid my taxes. And I voted every election since I had first was registered. I'm supposed to be able, the dream is I'm supposed to be able
Yeah.
to raise my kids in basic freedoms. And here we are.
Yeah, it's sad, it's disappointing, it's infuriating,
It's
it's
infuriating, but
all the things.
it is also why they are going to lose.
Yes.
So this is something that it's very important when you are protesting because and we see this because we moderate a lot of boards. We moderate a
Mhm.
lot of like comment boards and streams and discussions. And it's so easy to give into despair. Particularly when I know it's so common to say, oh, the news cycle, but it's true because it's very difficult to turn off the noise of stress because it's coming at you all the time. But it's important to remember that the people of this nation were not raised to be okay with being told to sit up and shut down. Just sit down and shut up.
Mhm,
We're not
mhm.
used to that. So it's not as easy to come in here and just push your agenda and take away freedoms without being able to being like, what? Because we may have taken it for granted, but now that it's not here, we're noticing, aren't we? So that's what gives me hope each day.
It's really true because, say what you will about Americans, and we have our faults, but, I would say one of our strengths is that, we speak up. We
Mhm.
are not shy, and we really, really take this freedom of speech thing seriously, and, we will not tolerate being told that we can't do that anymore.
Yes.
So, how do you with all of this onslaught, with the fire hose of misinformation, the flooding the zone with shit, the regime just throwing all this stuff at us every day, like, how do you keep your energy, keep your sanity, keep your focus to keep protesting, to keep organizing?
Well, I mean, you take a break now and then, um, and you surround yourself with fellow travelers. Um, the only one of the joys of this horror, and it's you have to find the beautiful things to hang on to, and one of them is the people that you meet when you are in the fight together. I have met so many incredible people that I never would have met. People that I now talk to every single day. In my other life, I'm a writer. I'm a fairly solitary person. I would have spent my whole life puttering in my garden and writing books, but now, you know, I'm in the fight, and thank God for that because I have met people who have enriched my life in ways that I'll take with me forever. Um, and that's how you do it. You talk to the people that are in it with you. I swear to God, the best thing you can do if you're having a bad day is go to an indivisible meeting. Join our group, NWI Takes Action. We're on Facebook. You will meet people on there that you are not alone. And the feeling of not being alone is it's so lifting. And that's how you do it. And ice cream helps. Carbs, I'm saying I stress bake. You'll take the carbs out of my cold dead hands. I'm too Polish for
Yeah.
it. I go to Lake Michigan.
It's important to keep those bits of joy,
Yes.
because for as much as everything is terrible, um, it's important to, sort of have a North Star, like, like, why are we doing these things? Why are we, uh, protesting? Why are we organizing? That it's to have decent, good things in our lives. So all
Right?
of everything we depend on isn't taken care or isn't taken away from us.
Yeah, it's you just hit Scott. I'm tired, man. I don't want to go stand on corners every weekend. I want to go putter in my garden. I want to go hang out with my kids. I want to game. We're gamers. I want to go to the beach. I want to walk my dog. I want to, call my mom and gossip. I don't want to have to do this, but you know what? I'm not willing to let go of this state. It's another thing people ask me. They're like, because I have a gay trans kid, I'm a liberal. Why am I here? Why do I stay in this state? I like it here. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let a bunch of MAGA morons steal this place from us.
Yeah,
Indiana, when we moved here, Mitch Daniels was here. That was the Indiana we moved to, where it's full of good folks with moderate views who can coexist and live together. And, there are some people who had some views that I didn't love, but we managed to get along and live in peace and basic freedom. And I'm not going to let go of that. And if all the good people go, what's left?
yeah,
If
yeah,
people who have a voice and are willing to use it all leave, who's going to speak for the people who can't? That was one of the most fascinating things that when we first switched from the Hoosier Waltz Facebook group to the NWI Takes Action Facebook group, how desperate people in red pockets of Indiana felt.
yeah.
We felt so isolated and so alone. I had people coming up from Fort Wayne to
Wow.
volunteer in the Harris Waltz field office. We saw so much that of that. The fact is, though, there are so many more of them than they think. I could go
Yes.
through and pick out tons of people from all over the state, red areas everywhere. Our group doesn't hit just NWI alone. We've got people from all over Indiana up there, and they're there. So we have to be there to speak for them, and we are.
Yeah, for certain, and that's one of the things that pisses me off
Yeah,
so much when you hear
right?
folks, and a lot of times it's coastal liberals. They're like, "Oh well, those people in the red states, they deserve it. This is what they voted for." No, we didn't. Not all of us.
Differ,
Some
friend.
people did. But I mean, look, even in the reddest of counties, what, 40%,
Mhm.
a third maybe of people are still liberals. They're still voting blue. And there's
They
people who aren't voting at all because they feel so despondent or desperate or unrepresented.
Or they are, all the voter repression techniques
Yeah,
that are quietly being unveiled are taking
not to
effect.
mention that. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I am a precinct committeeman here in Munster.
Hmm.
One of the most fascinating things to come out of that, and also another thing to just hold in your heart, blue Indiana. Listen, when you look at the town by town level of voting, Indiana is still purple. We are
Hmm.
the state that voted in Obama. We can flip. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise, because again, you look at those maps, city by
Hmm.
city by
Hmm.
city, it's purple.
Yeah. The red is artificial. It's a construct of gerrymandering and voter suppression, and
Yeah.
Hoosiers are not a monolith, and there
No,
are
they're not.
so many good
There's
people
more
here that
Republicans
don't
right now.
deserve this. And you know what? Even the people that voted red, it, they
They
don't
didn't vote for
deserve
this.
this. They don't
No.
deserve it.
No, you can make a bad decision. It doesn't mean that you should be deported for it. It doesn't mean that you should lose your health care. It doesn't mean that you should be shunned by family and friends. It doesn't mean that your kids should lose their special education services. It doesn't mean you should lose your job. Like, no, nobody deserves, whether they vote. That's the other thing. It's so hard not to be angry and bitter.
Mhm.
Um, Particularly if you're blue and your family is red. That's something we also try to help with. We try to provide a place for people to figure out ways to talk and build bridges of repair to
Oh my god,
relationships
yeah.
that have been shredded by this election. Because if you live in Indiana, it's not possible to say, I don't have any MAGA relatives. You do. You have friends that voted for Trump. You have relatives that voted for Trump. You have to sit with these people at Thanksgiving. I don't have relatives in the state. I have friends that quietly have voted for Trump and just don't tell me about it, but I know what you did. I know, and I have family that in Michigan, that's where I'm originally from. They voted for Trump. Um, we have to fix that for we cannot just say screw off. You've
Right.
got what you deserve because we need them during this next election cycle. And just because it's our family and our friends, we have to get past the mindset where we view everybody outside of our circle as enemies because that's how we got
Yes.
here.
Yes. I've talked to people who are cult experts, talk about radicalization and the psychological techniques that are used, and so many of those folks, um, they've been lied to, their minds have been hacked, they've been brainwashed. It's maybe not who they really are, and if we cut them off,
Where are
they're,
they
they're
going to go?
they don't have a way out of the rabbit hole. And
Yeah,
then they're stuck there, and they become even further radicalized. And if they just have one person who maybe they don't agree with, who's still out here on the outside
right.
that rabbit hole, that lifeline is so vital
It's
to de-radicalization.
It is the only way we are going to make any inroads during this next election cycle. We have to let people feel like they can be people again. Like,
Yeah.
we need to let people feel like it's okay to make a mistake and admit it. Like, if I was a MAGA voter and I had regrets right now, I don't know if I would be able. Has anybody made it possible for me to admit that? Has anybody made it possible for me to ask questions and feel like I'm gonna get reasonable answers or not be judged? Like, no. If you the rabbit's not gonna come out of the rabbit hole if Elmer Fudd's standing there with a rifle ready to shoot him the minute he emerges. You need to
That's a great analogy.
do better than that. Put carrot cake there and get a cup of coffee and then sit down and talk to that person nicely when they come out. We have to be nice to each other again, for God's sakes. Like, this is Indiana. We're Midwesterners. We are nice.
Yeah.
Can't we be that again? I want to. I mean, I like my neighbors. I like the people I talk to at the grocery store. I like people here. And I want us to be able to like each other back again. And I would
Yeah.
also like us to be able to protect our fundamental freedoms and, be nice to
Yeah.
black people and be nice to immigrants and not deport them and respect the rule of law and, keep health care and treat our veterans nicely and not traumatize our federal workforce. We love you. I don't care what Trump says. It's not
So
that
much.
hard to be a decent person. And
All of that. All of that. Yeah, absolutely.
maybe we need to find a candidate that just runs and says, "Hey, I'm not a jerk. Here we go."
It is so
Have
much of
a
that.
barometer where we are. Like, I don't know, but
Inevitably, the all or nothing, black and white thinking, um, the binary thinking is what fascism depends on.
Yes,
And if we do it too, we're just help feeding the beast. We're
we
just helping
are.
to feed the beast. Yeah.
And as that beast gets fed, all of the institutions that teach people the kind of critical thinking skills will be whittled away. There's a reason why
Hmm.
universities are one of the first lines of attack in
Oh
any
yeah.
dictatorship
Oh yeah.
or fascist government organization. And look what's happening to our universities now. I mean,
Yeah. Oh my God, what the Braun regime is doing to IU is disgusting and criminal. And I'm speaking as an IU alum, and I am.
I'm sure you're ready to spit fucking oh, excuse my language, spit nails.
Oh,
Bec
please,
Yeah,
please.
okay. Like, eh, okay, so I'm a Michigan grad.
Hmm.
And when it first seemed like Michigan was gonna try to when they got rid of their DEI initiatives there,
Hmm.
I could have I've never felt more betrayed in my life. Because I believed that institution held the values that they held when I was there.
Yeah.
But the thing is that universities, though they appear to be monoliths of virtue and value that you take with you for the rest of your life, and they'll always be that way. No, they are not. They are as vulnerable as we're seeing now, Harvard, to the political winds as anyone else. And God bless Harvard for finally having some
Yeah.
cojones, and at least one institution is standing up. And now some of the Big Ten universities are starting to band together to provide a bulwark against this encroachment on education, but none of these things that we thought were immune to political pressure are. It's
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
reality of things. So we gotta pull on our pig panties and get moving. We've just gotta do it. All of us.
It's true. It's true. And this is why we protest. We value these institutions. We value education. We value a functioning government.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is why we need to speak up. Do you have anything coming up in the next couple weeks? As far as protests go, I know there's a No Kings event on June 14th, kind of nationwide. Are you guys doing something with that?
So Indivisible NWI is hosting a No Kings protest on June 14th. It's at the Highlands Avenue Flags Monument. Um, they're taking the lead on that one. As for us, we are kind of trying to figure out what our next protest might be, or if we're going to sort of shift focus now that there's some other organizations that are around to kind of do more of the heavy lifting of protest movements. And we're trying to look at ways to provide communication channels
Mm,
here in NWI. One of the things that we're considering, because like there's a sort of a bit of a media gap emerging up here, and there's just a real hunger for ways for like people to talk. There's not a lot of liberal podcasts up here, and we're considering kind of stepping into that zone. So we're exploring what we're going to do next there, but another thing that we are really focused on is we now want to really try to hold our governor and our state officials to the fire. We just did a back off Braun tow test a few weeks ago at the CVPA when we found out the Munster Chamber of Commerce had invited him here. Um,
oof.
because we want to be sure that local both federal and local elected officials know that there is going to be some prices to pay. um,
Mhm.
we we're seeing some impact at the federal level for Trump's actions, and he's got pressure on him. Now we need to make certain that our legislators understand that you know there's real impact on us. Now that we've made Trump vulnerable, it's time to start picking off his areas of support, and that's where we're focusing now. There
Yeah,
are some
yeah.
other interesting things coming up. There's an empty chair town hall coming up. I can't remember the date, but I'll send it to you later in case you want to add that information
Absolutely.
anywhere in Hobart. That is for both of our senators who, of course, declined to attend. I wanted to
Shocking.
turn, huh? Yeah,
Shocking. Yeah.
yeah. But, like we need to be getting the message out that, you know what, we're not losing focus on what you're doing. You're not escaping our clutches, and you're not going to get a free pass come this next election. So you better start changing your ways now, because we're watching, we see what you're doing, and you're going to be held to account when those ballots hit the boxes. And it's going to
Yeah,
be my mission to make certain every single thing you said or done that has supported the MAGA agenda follows you the rest of your days.
you're gonna wear it around your neck. Yeah, and with
Mhm,
so much of the news cycle is nationalized, we focus on Congress and Trump
mhm.
and all that. The state level stuff skates under the radar, and it's especially escapes under the radar up where you're at because so much of your media
Yes,
coverage is coming out of Chicago.
yes,
So they're talking about what's going on in Springfield, not what's going
yeah.
on in Indianapolis.
No, and that's you've hit the nail on the point. We don't have affiliate here to carry local political news. We've had some modest success getting coverage on certain small things from from Chicago outlets, but most of it has been limited to, the Sun Times, the NWI Times. There's print journalism, and
Yeah.
it's hard. So that's sort of where we're kind of trying to see if there's a way that we can help with that. But yeah, there is a news desert here, and getting Indianapolis to focus on what we're doing up here is difficult too, because for the most part, they're not really they don't have outlets up here. It's a hoof for them to get up here. So it's not feasible for them to really come up here every time we're doing something, and we're not paying attention to them anyway. So
Yeah. Their
it's an
world stops where their airwaves stop. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, we're just trucking along the best we can. But yeah, it is a problem that we're hoping to try to find a way to solve. So, yeah,
So
affiliates, if you want to come up here, hi.
The last thing I wanted to ask is, if people are listening to this or watching us here, what can they do to help out, to get involved with your organization, find more information about you, maybe help out with some financial resources?
Well,
Where can folks do that?
so we personally don't tend to do much fundraising. Um, we do more just organizing. We
Hmm.
have done limited fundraisers, like we were really excited about this one. We did a billboard. We helped do a GoFundMe for a billboard during the campaign, which was fun. And we've kicked around ideas about doing another one for the dunes, but we haven't gotten that one off the ground. But we are NWI Takes Action on Facebook. I know Facebook isn't everybody's jams, but that's where we do our primary organizing now, just because that's where we had started out.
And
Um,
it's still a good tool for that.
it
Yeah.
is. It's really there is unfortunately there is just no other good.
Do you guys have a website?
No, we don't. We're on Facebook. It's NWI Takes Action. Another great place to go is Indivisible NWI. They do a lot of they have a lot of resources. They have a website. So too do the Nasty Women of Porter County. Um, and that's kind of how you can find us. You and they kind of tend to cross promote our events, and we cross promote theirs, and so that's really the best way to get involved. And if there's an organization that you want to shout, if you want to do a donation to, I'll shout out the one that's most nearest and dearest to my heart right now. And we're kind of when people ask us where they can make the most impact for dollars wise right now, we send them here. There's a group called IYG. They're called Indiana Youth Group. You may be familiar with them. They are the
Lovely
nation
organization.
they
Yeah.
are
Wonderful.
amazing, and they happen to open just for your listeners, if you don't know, I believe they are the nation's, largest LGBTQ, plus youth center, and they serve teens and young adults in the LGBT community. They provide a safe space. Particularly if the kids have been kicked out, it's a hangout for them. It's an amazing place. One of my kids goes there every week for their teen night. I love them. And they happen to be opening their NWI office here right after the election. So everybody in the region was like, oh, thank God for good things. There is still hope left in the world. But unfortunately, due to the fact that Trump has made DEI initiatives so toxic, a
Mm.
lot of their corporate support which was their primary fundraising model, pre-Trump um, has dried up. So right now they are searching for support for their for their Indianapolis group, but also in particular for their NWI office, which is the newest that has opened. And there is a Pride Fest in Lake Station that they are trying to get a lot of support for. It was really hard to pull off a Pride Fest in Indiana this year for obvious reasons. But we want to be sure that the flame for that does not go out. So if you want to throw some love, buy tickets to that, throw some support to that, support IYG and WI.
Very good. Tracie Martin, thank you so much for
Oh,
all
this
you
has been such
do,
a delight.
and thank you for joining the Who's Left podcast here today.
Oh my goodness, this was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Once again, that was Tracie Martin of NWI Takes Action. And if you're up in Lake County, check out their group on Facebook and get involved. I'll have my own thoughts on the unique political situations of places like the Calumet region, Kentuckiana, and the Cincinnati tri-state area in my essay later this week. Look for that on Friday. Then, this weekend, I'll be back with an all-new panel of guests on Who's Left This Week. That airs live every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on the Project Next Media Network, YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. Links for those are also in the show notes. It's a lot of fun if you haven't had a chance to check us out yet. I bring together panelists from the Democratic Socialist left to Never Trump conservatives, and we look at the week's headlines from around Indiana and beyond. We'll also dive into one big topic and throw in a few jokes for good measure. Hope to see you there in the comments, but feel free to reach out before then. My email is scott@whosleft.us. Thanks again to our guest, Tracie Martin. You can find her at NWI Takes Action on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook too, as well as on Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok at Who's Left, or on most other social media sites at ScottRaj78. Hit me up with your feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns. And finally, one last request for your paid subscriptions at whosleft.us, where you'll find every episode and article we've ever published. Please forward the show to a friend and have them pass it on. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.